got to be someone to talk to that.
All right, we'll say good morning. Mamish. Good. All right, so we'll say today's daf is Ayin Gimel 73. We are picking up on Ayin Beis on day 72b, and we are picking up with Ahu Gavra. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines up from the bottom. A lot to do today. Our shir this morning is dedicated by Paul and Kathy Pollock in memory of Saul and Florette Pollock, Zara bas Avram Shmuel ben Zechariah. May their neshamas have an aliyah and the family in a chawa. So let's begin. Who gavra da asik chamra begishta ubas gishta. There was a man who was drawing wine from one barrel to another through a straw. So we'll say what he essentially had is he had two straws that he connected together, two reeds that he hollowed out, connected together, and essentially again had one connected to barrel A, one connected to barrel B. What he then did is he began to suck the wine out of barrel A. Once the suction began, so the wine began to flow from A into B. So what happens? So what happens? So an Akum came along and he placed his hand on the opening of the straw. So the Gemara says, so what's the status? So the Gemara says, Asrei Rava l'kulei chamra. So Rava went ahead and said, all of the wine is aser. So Amalei Rav Papa l'Rava, Amalei Rav Ada bar Masla l'Rava, Amalei Ravina l'Rava, b'mai. Why is it that all of the wine should be aser? So it must be benitzuk. It must be because ultimately, again, of the flow. Remember, again, he's putting his hand by we'll call it the output part of the straw, where all of the wine is flowing into barrel B. So it must be that this is an issue of nitzuk, of flow. As we established already, nitzuk is chibor, and that's why again all of the wine is aser. Shmamina nitzuk chibor. See from here that's what? That the both say a flow is considered to be a connection to the rest of the liquid, and that's why everything is aser. To which the Gemara says, it might be true that nitzuk is chibor, but this case is a little bit different as well. Shiny hasam, to kulei chamra agishto bas gishta gar. Both say this is a little bit different. Why? Because all of the wine does flow through the straw. That's the difference. So the difference over here is that this is, even if you hold that nitzuk eno chibor, even if you hold that a flow is not a connection, even in this case you would agree that the wine will be aser. Why? Because at the end of the day, all the wine flows via the straw. And as such, again, halacha l'maisa, that's why if you touch it, all of it will be aser. So the Gemara says weiter. The Gemara says, fine. Amar Mar Zutra Beit Rav Nachman. Kanish kanin. So we'll say, what's a kanish kanin? It's a kanish kanin. I don't know what the English equivalent would be, but essentially it's a very large receptacle with multiple straws and filled with wine, and multiple people could drink from it at the same time. Okay, good. You're trying to drink, so they could all drink mamish at the same time. Okay.
It's like when you kid.
I'm sorry.
When you give kids straws, it's with a cup.
Like a sippy cup, right? It's an adult jumbo sippy cup, right? And everybody gets to drink from it at the same time with adult beverages, apparently. So it says the Gemara as follows. So kanish kanin shari. So let's listen to this. So the Gemara says that a Jew and an akum could drink. Now, let's say the kanish kanin is filled with kosher wine. So a Jew and an akum could drink from it at the same time. However, again, v'hani mili dekadam pasek Yisrael. We'll say this is all assuming that the Yisrael stops drinking first. Aval kadam pasek avikochavim lo. We'll say, however, here's the issue: if the avikochavim stops drinking first, then ultimately, again, it's going to be problematic for the Yisrael. Why? What's the issue over here? Because we'll say when you go out and you drink from it, so whatever you drink is fine. But as soon as you stop drinking, there's always that little bit. That's what? That came in contact with your lips that then goes back into the rest of the receptacle. The problem is that little bit that came in contact with the akum's lips is going to be yayin nesach or stam yainam, and it's going to be problematic for Jewish consumption. So everybody could drink together, that's fine, as long as the Jew stops drinking first. If the akum stops drinking first, then ultimately again it'll be problematic to continue. Rabbi Ravuna went to the house of the Reish Kalusa. Sharlu l'mishta b'kanish kanin, and he allowed everyone to drink from this kanish kanin. Top of Ayin Gimel. Iked the Amri, others explain Rabba Baravuna Gufei Ishte B'Kanish Kanin. But others say no, it was Rabba Baravuna himself who actually drank from this Kanish Kanin. Okay, says the Mishnah. Yayin Nesech Aser. So we'll say Yayin Nesech is Aser Va'oser V'choshu. And we'll say it has the ability ultimately again to create Isser even with the most minute amount. So we'll say, so as opposed to let's say other Isurim that need a larger shear in order to aser. So yayin nesech has the ability to aser what we call the mashu, even in a minute amount. So the Gemara says, Yayin koshu, Yayin b'yayin umayim b'mayim b'choshu. We'll say if permitted wine gets mixed in, or I should say prohibited wine gets mixed in with permitted wine, or prohibited water. We'll say what's the case of prohibited water? It's a case of where water was used as a libation for Avodah Zara, gets mixed in with other permitted water. B'choshu. We'll say ultimately again the prohibited substance the prohibited substance will aser even b'choshu, even in a minute amount. Yayin b'mayim umayim b'yayin. But we'll say if wine gets mixed in with water, or water gets mixed in with wine, b'no same time. Then I will say again it'll only aser if what? If it infuses taste into the permitted substance. Zehaklar. We'll say here is the principle min b'mino b'mashu. We'll say min b'mino. If ultimately again, if two like items get mixed together, right? One permitted, one prohibited. B'mashu. We'll say any amount of the prohibited substance will aser the permitted substance. V'shelo b'mino. But we'll say if two dissimilar substances get mixed in together, b'no same time. Ultimately, again, the prohibited substance only answers the permitted substance if there's enough of the prohibited substance to infuse taste. So we'll say this is a general halacha when it comes ultimately again to ma'achalos asuros. Min b'mino, two similar items. We'll say obviously in that case there's no nesinas tam, there's no infusion of taste. Why? Because they taste the same. They taste the same. Therefore, again, any minute amount will aser. Min b'she'eno mino, two dissimilar items are both saying, but no same time will only aser if ultimately they infuse taste. Says the Gemara, ki as Rav Dimi. We'll say so. Rav Dimi comes along and advances a very dramatically different shita. So comes along Rav Dimi. He says, name Rabbi Yochanan, hama'are yayin nesech mechavis lebar. This is actually very interesting. So imagine the following case: somebody is pouring yayin nesech. The Akum is pouring yayin nesech from his barrel into the bar. Remember, what's the bar? The bar is the wine cistern of the Jew. So the Akum is standing there pouring his yayin nesech into the wine cistern of the Jew. What's the halacha? Afilo kol yom kulo. Even if he clears his schedule, he takes off the entire day to pour yayin nesech into the bar of the Jew. Nevertheless, so the Gemara says, Afilo kol yom kulo, rishon batel. We'll say this is an amazing sheet of Rav Dimi. He holds that the wine, the yayin nesech, is batel. Why is the yayin nesech batel? We'll say because he holds as follows. He holds that as those drops of yayin nesech, as that yayin nesech comes in, Rabbi say, each little bit of yayin nesech, as it's introduced to the bar, becomes batel in the bar. So in other words, we'll say, remember, as it flows in, see, what Rav Dimi is saying is, we look at the mixture in freeze frames. Every single time some liquid, yayin nesech, hits the surface of the bar, we measured that liquid that came in contact with the bar vis-a-vis the rest of the bar. There's much more bar wine than yayin nesech wine, and therefore what? Each little bit, as it makes contact, ultimately is batel in the greater volume of the permitted bar. Look at Rashi. Rishon, shenafal batel b'yayin kasha shebabar umuter bahana. Therefore, what's in Rav Dimi's model? The wine, as it's poured in, becomes batel in the bar, and therefore again becomes mutter bahana. V'aydi turn the kamal yayin nesech shafal babar kula aser. So listen to this. Now, obviously, Rav Dimi is arguing. Well, we'll have to see. Rav Dimi seems to be arguing on the Mishnah. Because what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that yayin nesech is aser b'kol shu, which will say means that yayin nesech, even in any small amount, by definition, asers. Rav Dimi nevertheless holds that if you're pouring in wine, because as soon as the liquid hits the top of the surface of the bar, so that becomes batel in the wine of the bar. So Tnan, yayin nesech aser, va'oser b'chol shu. So we'll say 1 second. So let's look at the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says that yayin nesech is aser, and it asers in any small amount. My lav, dikanafal isura legohetira. Are we not talking about a case where we'll say where what? Where you're pouring the iser into the heter. So we'll say, so again, are we not talking about the same type of situation of Rav Dimi, where the Akum is taking the yayin nesech wine and he's pouring it into the bar of the Jew? And yet, what does the Mishnah say about say? What does the Mishnah say? What's the status of that wine? It's aser. It's aser, and it's aser b'chol shu. Yet Rav Dimi says it's mutter. Lo. The karnafel hetera lego isura. The Rebbe say, in fact, the Mishnah's case is where what? Where actually the Jew is pouring the heter wine into, let's say again, the Isser wine. So we'll say the case would be the case of the Mishnah is the reverse. The Jew is pouring the heter wine into the bar of the akum. And what does the Mishnah Paskin? The Mishnah Paskin is as yayin nesach is aser b'chol shu. And Abba said that fits in Rav Dimi's model. Why? Because what's Rav Dimi's model? Abba saying that essentially when you pour a smaller amount of wine into a larger body of wine, each little bit of wine as it's introduced is bottle in the whole. Therefore, Abba say the Mishnah's case is where the akum is pouring. The Jew is pouring heter wine into the bar of yayin nesech. And what does the Mishnah say? That at the end of the day, even if it turns out that you're pouring more kosher wine into yayin nesech wine, the way it works is how each little bit of wine automatically becomes bottled to the bar. In this case over here, the bar is yayin nesech, and the heter is being poured, and therefore the heter is going to be aser. There will say, no, that's not the pashut interpretation of the Mishnah's case. That's Rav Dimi's interpretation of the Mishnah's case. So Tashma. So we'll say the Gemara goes right. Tashma. Yayin b'mayim b'nosein tam. So we'll say, listen to this. What did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said that if you pour wine into water, so it is only aser b'nosein tam. If there is enough wine to go ahead and introduce flavor into the water. My lav the kanafel chamra di isura l'mayim de'atera. We'll say, are we not talking about a situation where the wine of Isser is falling into the water of Heter? And yet, again, what do we see? That it's only Asr if what? It's only Asr if there's Nesinas Tam, to which the Gemara says, Lo, de kanafel chamra de Hetera lemayim di Isura. So Rav Dimi will say, no, what's the case? The case is where wine of Heter is falling into water of Isser. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, umidereisha b'mayid di isura, sefer nami b'mayid di isura. I'll say if that's the case, that the Reisha is talking about water that is prohibited, is the sefer, we're assuming that the water is the same in both cases. The sefer must also be talking about water that's prohibited, and yet the katani sefer. Yeah, what did we learn in the sefer? Mayim biyayim. If ultimately again the water falls into the wine, beno same time. It is only usher if, or we'll say if what? If it infuses taste. So Amar l'cha Rav Dimi will say no. Kula masnisin hetera lego isura. We'll say now again, this is only in Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi says that the entire Mishnah is set up in the following situation. What's the case? The Rav Dimi will say that the entire Mishnah is talking about cases of heter which fall into isser. Heter which fall into isser. So you are pouring the heter into the isser. You're pouring the permitted item ultimately again into the prohibited item. V'reisha dikanafil chamra be'etera. And we'll say ultimately again the reisha will be talking about a case where permitted wine fell into nafra chamra be'etera l'maydi surah. Permitted wine falls into prohibited water. Seifa dikanafil mayid be'etera l'chamra di surah. And we'll say the seifa will be a case of what? Where ultimately again water of heter falls into wine of isser. So we'll say, so bottom line is Rav Dimi has this very unique shita. And in Rav Dimi's shita, I will say, the way we say is that when you pour, so it doesn't really matter what you're pouring. The point is, when you pour something into a greater collected body of liquid, we say that that item that is being poured is automatically bottled in the greater body of liquid that is being poured into. Why? Because in Rav Dimi's Ma'or Rabba said the way we look at the mixture as each little bit of liquid hits the surface of the greater pooled liquid. So I hope I'm being clear over here. So I'll say, so if you look at it like that, then what? Then by definition, the poured liquid will always be bottled in what? In the collected liquid. Why? Because I will say, at that moment when the mixture first takes place, it's only a little bit of poured liquid that's coming in contact with a much greater body of pooled liquid. Therefore, by definition, each act of pouring is looked at on its own, and Rav Dimi will therefore say the poured liquid, by definition, always becomes bottled in the collected liquid. So we'll say, so again, it's an incredible chiddush. It's an incredible chiddush because in Rav Dimi's model, essentially we don't look at the poured liquid as a whole. We look at it as it is being poured. And Rav Dimi, so now we've just interpreted how Rav Dimi ultimately would interpret the Mishnah. Okay, so the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, fine. The Gemara says, Ki as Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Am Rabbi Yochanan. When Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef came along, he said, name Rabbi Yochanan, Hama'ara yayin nesech mitzir tzur katan lebar. So let's listen to this case. So this is a little bit different. Rabbi Yochanan comes along and says as follows. If somebody pours yayin esach from a tzir katan, so we'll say tzir katan literally means a small utensil or a small vessel. Somebody pours yayin esach from a small utensil into a pit. Afilu kolayam kulos. So we'll say the case over here is the akum is pouring yayin esach from his small utensil into a large bar, into a large cistern of kosher wine. So what's the halacha? Afilu kolayam kulo. We'll say even if he stands there, mamish, pouring the entire day, what's the halacha? Rishon batal. Ultimately, again, I will say, what's the halacha? The halacha is that as the flow comes in, it is batal. It is batal. Literally, Rishon batal means as the flow comes in, ultimately, again, it's going to go ahead and be batal. The dafka tzir katan. But this halacha will say only refers to what? To a very small utensil. Delo nafish amude. Because it will say the flow is very thin. Aval chavis, but if he's pouring from a barrel, the nafish amude, where the flow literally is very thick, then what? Then low. Then we'll say ultimately again, this halacha does not apply. So we'll say so this is an interesting spin-off of Rav Dimi. If you notice again in Rav Dimi's model, we'll say his idea, he said even by a barrel. In Rav Dimi's model, pretty much what we're saying is we look at a very thin layer of liquid that comes in contact with the pooled liquid. And by definition, that thin layer will always be bottled in the greater pooled liquid. The Gemara essentially says, Rav Dimi, we don't accept that position, but we do accept a modification of that position. Namely what? That if you are pouring from a very small jug, which I will say by definition means what? You have a very thin flow. So you have a very thin flow, then we could say that as the flow comes into the cistern, to the bar, by definition it is bottled in the bar. But if you are pouring from a barrel which has a much thicker flow, then what? Then halach lamaisa, it will not be bottled in the bar. Kiyasim Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So also in Rabbi Kimno, long sitting in Rabbi Yochanan as follows. He said as follows. He said, Yayin esech shanaf al bar. If Yayin esech falls into the bar, so I'll say this is now a new case. So far, number one, what we have is as follows. We seemingly reject the position of Rav Dimi, but accept some type of modified position. What's the modified position? That if indeed the akum is pouring from a very small utensil into a larger cistern, we say that the flow from the small utensil will be bottled in the larger cistern because it's a very small flow. Therefore, again, we look at it as each little bit of liquid, when it comes in contact with the surface area of the pooled liquid, by definition will be bottled. If it's coming from a thicker flow, i.e. from a barrel, then halacha lamaisa, we don't say that it is automatically bottled in the pooled liquid. Then all of the laws of bittul, as we saw them espoused in the Mishnah, will kick in. New case. Kiyasir Ravin Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Yayin nesech shenaf al bar. We'll say, watch this case. If yayin nesech falls into the bar, and what happens? V'nafal sham kiton shamayim. I will say, in addition, so now remember, I have a cistern of kosher wine. Here's what's happening. Two things are falling into that cistern. Number one, yayin esech, not necessarily in this order, as we'll see in just a moment. Number one, yayin esech, and number two, kiton shamayim, a jug of water. A jug of water. Now, it's not the jug that's falling in, it's the water that's falling in. Now watch this. What's the halacha? Roin es haheter. So we'll say, so watch this. Roin es haheter kilo eno sham. So we'll say kilo eno. So we'll say, so the halacha is as follows. I view the permitted item as if it's not there. Now what's the permitted item in this case? So specifically a reference to the kosher wine. Vashar mayim rabin alav umavat lenos. And I both say, good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. Now the case over here is where what? The case over here is where halacha lemaisa, there is enough water in this mixture to technically. All right, here's the issue that I have. Let's say I have two things going on over here. I have a min bamino situation and a min b'she'eno mino situation. I have a min bamino, right? What's the min bamino? I will say the wines, right? I have yayin esech and kosher wine. Yayin min bamino. I will say asers in what kind of ratio? Afilu b'chol shehu. So we'll say, so technically speaking, my wine mixture is going to be aser. It's going to be aser. Because remember again, min bamino, two like items, aser afilu b'mashu. It will say even with a very small amount, even a minute amount of iser. So if I look at the wines together, the wines will become aser. But yet I have something else going on, which is what I have water. We'll say, what is water called? What is water called? That's min b'she'eno mino. Now the key of Rabbosai is, if you just line up the yayin nesech and the water side by side, there's enough water to be mavatal the yayin nesach. What's the problem? Right? Because what that means is that the yayin nesach would not be nosing tam into the water. What's the problem, we'll say? The problem is, if the yayin nesach combines with the kosher wine, then the two of those together overpower the water. So water against yayin nesach, there's enough water to go ahead and essentially mute the taste of the yayin nesach. But if the yayin nesach and the kosher wine forge together, then the two of those would overpower the water. You hear what's happening over here? This is a very incredible tension that's happening in this bar. So it says, what does the halacha say I could do? The halacha says, I can go rowan as eter kilo, so I can halachically view the kosher wine as if it's not there. V'ashar mayim rabin alav umevatlin also. And also, if I view halachically the kosher wine as if it's not there, then what does that enable me to do? That enables me to go ahead and allow the water to go ahead and be mevatel the yayin nesech. So look at Rashi just a moment. We'll say rowan esah heter kilo eno v'lo amrinon hari ne'asar kol yayin v'raba yayin alamayim dahavi chamra ruba ela be'isr shenaf al greidim sharinon vika maya ruba ama polig ravin adravdimi v'ashmoinan demayu demavatel chamra aval chamra lo mevatel chamra. So we'll say, so there's a couple of things happening over here. So first of all, we're being introduced to this new concept that halacha lemaisa, in this mixture of multiple items, I can view the kosher wine as if it's not there, allow the water to be mavato, ultimately again the yayin nesech, and then I will say everything becomes part of the yayin heter. So essentially the entire mixture becomes permitted. But I also want to point out, the Rashi just points out, that Ravin is going ahead and arguing on Rav Dimi. Because we'll say, according to Rav Dimi, this whole situation would have never gotten started. Why would it have never gotten started according to Rav Dimi? We'll say, why? Because according to Rav Dimi, what happens? When you pour yayin nesech into a bar of kosher wine, what happens to the yayin nesech? We'll say, by definition, it's batal. Because again, every little bit of the wine that hits the surface area of the bar, by definition, becomes batal in the bar. So I said, this is an incredible chiddush. This situation of Ravin, we view the yayin heter, we view the kosher wine as if it's not there, allow the water to be mevatel, the yayin nesech, and then everything ultimately again becomes mutter. So the Gemara says, Ki asr Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Yochanan lo shanu ela shenaf al kiton shamayim tchila. We'll say, so now we're going to qualify this. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda said, Rabbi Yochanan, this is only true if the ketone of water was there, if the water was there first. We'll say, when we say first, what does that mean? Remember, this is a bar of kosher wine. If the ketone shamayim falls in next, and then afterwards the yayin nesech, then you could use this whole arrangement. We'll say, if the water didn't fall in first, then what? Which means what? The yayin nesech fell in first, then we've got a problem. Why? Because if the yayin nesech falls in first, now it's Rabbi say, all of the wine becomes aser, and then once the water falls in, I will say there's not enough water to move out all of the wine. So matzamin esmino veneir. We'll say others go ahead and make this statement of Ravin on the Mishnah. Yain be yain kosher. We'll say, what did the Mishnah say? That wine, kosher wine, and yain akum and yain nesech to get mixed in together. B'kosher. We'll say we'll ask each other even in a minute amount. I'm not sure Yehuda, I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Lo shanu ella shalom nafal sham kiton shamayim. That's only true if a jug of water didn't fall in. Aval nafal sham kiton shamayim. But I will say if water got mixed into this mixture, then rowan as a heter kilo eno. Then ultimately we'll view the heter as if it's not there. You see, right? We'll view the heter wine as if it's not there. Vashar mayim rabin alav, and that will allow the water to overpower the yayin nesech umevatlin also. So we'll say ma'ika bein ledemasni la amasnisin bein ledemasni la adirabin. So we'll say, what's the chilik if you go ahead and you attach this conversation to the Mishnah, or just a freestanding statement of Rabbin? Man demasni la amasnisin la bay tchila, or man demasni la adirabin bay tchila. We'll say, here's the difference. The difference is, do you need the water to fall in first? If you view this as a part of the Mishnah statement, then I will say, you do not need the water to fall in first. If you go ahead and you make this a part of Ravin's statement, then you do need the water to fall in first. So we'll say, so what do we take from this? We're going to take from this the statement of Rav. So we'll say, here's what we have so far. We have the statement of Rav Dimi, which we seem to reject halacha l'maisa, that if you have yayin nesech being poured into a bar of kosher wine, that the yayin nesach by definition is batal. Why? Because we view each drop as it comes in as being batal barov. Okay, seems that we're rejecting that statement. Ravin comes along and tells us something a little bit different. The Rifra will say you have a bar of kosher wine, and then what happens? A flask of water falls into that. So when the flask of water falls in, what's changed? Nothing, because remember, it's kosher water falling into kosher wine. Everything is fine. Then we'll say something interesting happens, which is yayin nesech is introduced. So we'll say, so now we have two things going on over here. We have water, we have kosher water, kosher wine, and yayin nesech. Ravin comes along and says an incredible chiddush. For halachic purposes, we view the kosher wine as if it's not there. We allow the water to interact with the yayin nesech, assuming that there's enough water to be mavatal the yayin nesech. We allow the water to mavatal the yayin nesech. That mixture becomes permitted, and ultimately, again, mixes with the kosher wine, which essentially says that what? That the entire contents of the bar will be mutter. But that is dafka if what? If the water falls in first. If the yayin nesech falls in first, then matzah min esmino, then you have two like items that have already fallen in and mixed together, and when the water subsequently falls in, then ultimately, again, unless of course there's enough water to be mevatel the tam of what? Of the entire mixture of the wine, then Allah Lamaisa, the mixture will be mutter. But assuming the water falls in first, we allow the water to interact with the yayin nesech, be mevatel the yayin nesech, and ultimately go ahead and mix together with the yayin kasher afterwards. An incredible chiddush. Itmar, yayin nesech shenaf al bar. Let's listen to this. So yayin nesech, so we'll say I have a bar of kosher wine, yayin nesech falls in. V'nafal sham kidon shalmayim. And what? And a flask of water falls in afterwards. So what happens? Amar Beis, Amar Chizkiya Higdi. So we'll say, so now the shaila is, what's the status of the mixture? So Chizkiya says as follows: Higdilo be'isr aser, Higdilo beheter mutter. So Chizkiya says, we'll say essentially, if really look at Rashi. Higdilo Rashi says, Hamayim v'yayin be'isr shenofal yayin esech bisof vigdilo aser. So we'll say, listen to this. Chizkiya essentially says, whatever falls in last is what determines the identity of the mixture. If the yayin nesech falls in last, then that determines the identity of the mixture. If the permitted water falls in last, then ultimately, again, that determines the identity of the mixture. Look at Rashi Gdilu, Hamayim v'hayayin be'isr shenafal yayin nesech besof v'gdilu aser. V'lo amrin rones haheter ikeilu eino el yayin nesech mischar belamino v'enamayim rabin alav. V'kol shkinim nafal mayim besof. So we'll say, so Rabbin says essentially, Chizkiya says as follows: whatever falls in last is effectively what determines the identity of the mixture. Higdilo be'isr aser, higdilo beheter mutter. Rabbi Yochanan says, afilu higdilo be'isr mutter. Rabbi Yochanan says no. We'll say even if the isr falls in last, it is still ultimately again going to be mutter. Going to be mutter. We'll say now what's the pshat of it? Look at Rashi. Rabbi Yochanan amar afilu higdilo be'isr. We'll say it's in the third of the short lines of Rashi. Hoil umayim naflo tchila lo amrinan matzah min esnes. We'll say Rabbi Yochanan seems to be saying what Ravin said before, which is that what? That actually it's better if the yayin nesech falls in last, because this way again, if you have you have the vat of kosher wine, then the permitted water gets mixed in. Then what happens? The yayin nesech falls in afterwards. We allow what? We allow the water to interact directly with the yayin nesech. Hopefully be mevatel the yayin nesech, and then I will say what? And then the rest of the mixture becomes permitted. On the Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Zara, Leimech Chizkiya, Rabbi Yochanan, so we'll say maybe Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan are arguing on the same machlokes Rabbi Elazar and the Rabbanan. We'll say, now what is this referring to? Remember, Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan just have this machlokes over here, where you have this mixture of wine, kosher water, so to speak, kosher water, and yayin nesech. Everything gets mixed together. Chizkiya says, how do you determine the halachic identity of the mixture? So Chizkiya says, it goes by what? It goes by whatever was introduced last to the mixture. So Rabbi Yochanan says, no, that even if the last item ultimately again was the yayin nesech, the mixture itself still has the ability to be mutter. So says the Gemara, so say that Chizkiya and Rabbi Yochanan are arguing machlokes Rabbi Elazar the Rabbanan, Disnan. We'll say, here we go. Sar shel chulin v'shel truma, shenaflu socha isa. We'll say, inyane diyoma. So we'll say, sar. Sar means a leavening agent, something that makes something else chametz. So you have a leavening agent of chulin and truma. We'll say, The leavening agent of chulin is totally permitted. The leavening agent of truma is aser. I'm a Yisrael, I'm using it. So what happens? Shanaflu l'socha isa, and they fall into a dough. Lo bazekedi lechamitz v'lo bazekedi lechamitz. So both say now neither of them on their own have the ability to what? To make something into chametz. And what's the halacha? V'nit starfu v'chamtzu. And we'll say they combine together and they make the object into chametz. So we'll say, so the status is now neither of them had the ability on their own to cause chimutz in the dough. Together, they create chimutz. So we'll say, so what's the status of the dough? So what does the Gemara say? Rabbi Lazar Omer, acharon aniba. Rabbi Lazar says, the status of the mixture, we'll say, is determined by what? By the last chimutz agent that is introduced. The last one introduced, Rabbi Lazar, is one that establishes identity. V'cham say, bein shenafal iser betchila ubein basof eino aser ad shehei bo kedi lahachametz. So we'll say, Chachamim say no. I don't care what came in first, what came in last, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, as long as the Isser does not have the ability to affect chimutz on its own, then what? Then ultimately the mixture is going to be permitted. So we'll say, so say that that the machlokes Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan, we'll say the same as Rabbi Lazar and the Chachamim. Chizkiah holds like Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi says that we go after the last item introduced. And Rabbi Yochanan goes like the Chachamim, that ultimately, again, it doesn't matter, meaning as long as the Isser itself doesn't have the ability to affect change by itself, then the mixture will be permitted. V'tizbara, Abaye said, Lo shanu ela shekidim v'silek Isser. Plus, Abaye qualified this case, and Abaye said this case is only true if after the Isser got mixed in, you removed the Isser. However, Rabbi say if you did not remove the Isser from the mixture and the Isser is still there, then what? Then Aser. Then ultimately, again, the Isser will be prohibited. Rabbi say, look at Rashi. It's almost Rashi right across. About Ela Shekid. Actually, it is right across. Ela Shekidem. Actually, Lo Shanu. Lo Shanu. Rabbi Lazar Damim Nafla Heter B'Sof Mutter. But see, even Rabbi Lazar who says that if the Isser that if the Heter falls in last, the mixture is permitted. His shita is only if what? Ela shekidim v'silik yaseh iser. V'lo neshla mashiach v'yodei tzirov. The Rebbe will say again that the prohibited item is not there, and therefore the prohibited item does not contribute ultimately again to the actual mixture. Avalo kidim v'silko mitzarif heter le'iser lahashlam esashir. Rebbe will say even according to Rebbe Lazar, if the iser is still there, if it's still present, then the Lamaisa it is mitzarif ultimately to create the iser. To which the Gemara says, Chizkiah da Amar Kiman. So whose opinion would Chizkiah be like? To which the Gemara says, Ella hacha beroin kamifligi. Either Rabbi say Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan are arguing on something different. They're arguing, Rabbi say, in the concept of rowan. So Rabbi say rowan is what we bless you. Rowan is what we spoke about on Amud Aleph. We'll say, what did Rowan say? Rowan was in the case of, say, where you have the permitted wine, the prohibited wine, and the permitted water. And Rowan said to us what? We see it. We see it as if what? We see it as if the permitted wine is not there, and therefore, again, this becomes a tension between the water, the permitted water, and the prohibited wine. But say, remember again, what's advantageous about that? Because water and wine, Rabbi says, what kind of mixture? Min b'she'eno mino, and min b'she'eno mino, Rabbi says, only asur if what? If no same time. Which means that I will say that is a much harder shear to reach. So that's their machlokas. So the Gemara says the Chizkiah less they rowan. We'll say Chizkiah does not subscribe to the concept of rowan, and therefore again Chizkiah will say that halacha lemaisa if everything goes after the last item introduced to the mixture. For the Gemara says Chizkiah less lay rowan. Rabbi Yochanan Islay. Rabbi Yochanan does hold rowan, I will say. So the Gemara says, Islay Rabbi Yochanan rowan. Does Rabbi Yochanan, I will say, really hold that we could view the permitted wine as if it's not there, and let this be a tension between the water and the permitted wine. The water and the yain esech. V'habai minei Rab Asi mi Rabbi Yochanan. But we'll say, Rabbi Yochanan. We'll say, watch this case. Shnei kosos. You have 2 cups of wine. Echad shel chulin ve'echad shel truma. 2 cups of wine. One of chulin wine, one of truma wine. Mazgan, and I will say you diluted them. So I will say mazgan means, remember, wine in general. Bismana Gemara was diluted. So you went ahead and you diluted the wine. V'irvan zebazeh. And then you mix them together. So the Gemara says, so v'irvan zebazeh. So now what happens in that case? In that case over here, so you have chulin wine and you have truma wine. So we'll say, let's go through. So you dilute each of them. So what do you got? You've got wine and water, right? So you have chulin wine, which is permitted, the chulin water, which is permitted. You have truma wine, where the wine is prohibited, but the water mixed in is what? Is permitted. We'll say, when you mix all of that together, what's the status of the mixture? What's the status of the mixture? No idea, right? Well, but the answer is, it depends. What does it depend on? Can you go ahead and employ the principle of rowing? If you could imply the principle of rowing, then what can you effectively do? You could remove the permitted wine, the chulin wine, from the mixture, and make this a standoff between what? Truma wine and water. If you make this a standoff between truma wine and water, then what, Rabbosai? Then the mixture will be permitted. Because again, there will be more water than truma wine, and the truma wine will not be no saint tam into the water. If, however, you don't say rowan, then what? The truma wine combines with the chulin wine because it's min bamino, and therefore what we'll say, those two wines together will overpower the water. So we'll say that becomes the fundamental machlokes over here. So we'll say, rowan, I know what you're thinking to yourself. What does that mean? You view one wine as if it's not there. There's only one problem with that principle, we'll say, which is what? It's there, right? It's there. So we'll say, remember again, these because a lot of these halachos are d'Rabbanan, so the Rabbanan essentially will allow you to deal with the mixtures in freeze frames. We often think that mixtures have to be dealt with all together. The Rabbanan was saying we can allow you to deal with multiple mixtures at different frames. So I will say, you see over here that Rabbi Yochanan doesn't say anything about rowan over here. He doesn't say anything that we view the prohibited wine as if it's not, the permitted wine as if it's not there, and let this be a standoff between the water and the wine of truma. To which the Gemara said, "Lo pashat lei." So also he doesn't say anything. Meikar lo pashat lei, ulubas pashat lei. In the beginning, Rabbi Yochanan did not have a formulated opinion about this, but later on he does formulate his opinion about this and subscribes to the concept of rowan. Itmar nami amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, base kosos, echad shel chulin ve'echad shel truma. Let's say if you have 2 cups of wine, one of chulin, one of truma, mazgan v'irvan zebazeh, and ultimately what? We dilute both of the wines and we mix them together. What's the halacha? Rowan as heter ki'ilu eino. We'll say when figuring out the mixture, we take out the permitted wine, we view it as if it's not there. V'hashar mayim rabin alav umevatlin also. And I will say we allow ultimately again the water to go ahead and overpower the wine of truma, permit that mixture, and then add back in there, quote unquote, the permitted wine, and everything becomes mutter. Fine. So we'll say, so the Gemara seems to end off indicating that this really, herein lies the fundamental machlokes. So we'll say, we're really left with 3 interesting pieces of information, which Emir Hashem will resolve in tomorrow's daf. But I will say, first we have the shita of Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi says, in general, anytime you're pouring prohibited wine into permitted wine, I will say, what's the status of the mixture? Permitted. It's mutter, right? This incredible shita, ultimately, again, that the wine becomes mutter, ultimately, again, as it hits the surface area of the permitted wine. That's Rav Dimi. We'll say,
wine only or any other liquid?
Seems to be any prohibited liquid that gets mixed into a permitted liquid. I don't think it's unique by wine. We say, nah, we don't really accept that, with one exception, which is what Rabbi say. If you're pouring a very thin stream of prohibited liquid into permitted liquid, then that prohibited liquid will become bottle because it's a very thin stream. But say, then we come to this machlokes of rowan. When you go ahead and you have what? When you go ahead and you have this mixture of permitted wine, prohibited wine, and water. If you allow the water to face off against the prohibited wine, and there's more water than wine, so we'll say, so the question is, how do we view this mixture? Do we say wine combines with wine and overpowers water? Or do we say no, water goes up against prohibited wine, bis mevatel prohibited wine, and then combines with permitted water, ultimately again to make it mutter? So we'll say, that's called the machlokes of rowan, and then I will say that seems to be the machlokes ultimately between Chizkiah and The Rabbanon. Fine. So it says, we'll say, we'll resolve that. We'll see what the halacha l'maisa is in that tomorrow. So we'll say the Mishnah said, this is the principle. Min b'mino is aser b'mashu, shelo b'mino only if it infuses taste. Rabbi Shmuel Silber called the isurin shebetorah b'minon b'mashu. Rabbi Shmuel said, every isur in the Torah, we'll say, if it's two like items, one permitted and one prohibited, and they get mixed in together, the prohibited item asters the permitted item, even in a mashu, even in a minute amount. Shaloba minon, Rabbi say if there are two dissimilar items, then what? Beno sein tam. It only asters if what Rabbi say if it infuses taste into the permitted item. Hakol haklal zaklal asuyim. Rabbi say when we say zaklal, this is the principle. What does that come to include? So the Gemara says. La sui kol isurin shebetorah. It comes to Rabbi say that this is not only din bayayin nesech, but it comes to include all other isurim as well. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish say kol isurin shebetorah be'minon ben shelo b'mino b'no sein tam. Every isur in the Torah, whether it's min b'mino or min she'eno b'mino, Rabbi is always b'no sein tam. Only if it's enough to infuse taste. Chutz mitevel v'yayin nesech. So say with the one exception of tevel and yayin nesech. Also, let's say if truma gets mixed in with tevel or yayin nesech gets mixed in with what? Tevel gets mixed in with tithe produce, or ultimately again yayin nesech gets mixed in with kosher wine. In these cases, b'minon b'mashu. We'll say if it's like items, it ashes b'mashu. Shelo b'minon b'no sein tam. If it's dissimilar items, then it's nesinas tam. The zakal asuye. We'll say what does zakal come to include? It comes to include tevel. We'll say it comes to include the case of tevel. So Tanya Kavas did Rabbi Shmuel. So we have a brayso that says supports Rabbi Shmuel. Tanya Kavas did Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Brayso which supports Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Tanya Kavas did Rabbi Shmuel. We have a brayso that supports Rabbi Shmuel. Kol isurin shebetorah, any isur in the Torah. Biminon, if it's two similar items, b'mashu. We'll say asher than a mashu. Shelo biminon, if it's dissimilar items, b'no sein tam. It's only asher if it infuses taste. That's a supports Rabbi Shmuel. Tanya Kavas did Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Kol isurin shebetorah, bein b'minon ben shelo b'minon b'no sein tam. Any isur in the Torah, we'll say whether it's min b'mino, min b'she'eno mino, it is asher b'no sein tam. Chutz mitevel v'yayin nesech. With the exception of we'll say if tevel and yayin nesech, b'minon mashu. If it's b'minon, it asher b'mashu. Shelo b'minon b'no sein tam. So the Gemara says b'shlam yayin nesech mishum chomer davel is chav. So I understand we'll say why yayin nesech will be treated more chomer. Why? Because we'll say yayin nesech is an issue of avodah zara. We always treat avodah zara more stringently. Ela tevel my taima. So the Gemara will say, but why is it that we would treat tevel in a more chomer way? Ke'atero kach isuro. We'll say because we treat the heter of tevel like the isra of tevel. What does that mean? Damar Shmuel chita achas boteres asakri. We'll say on a technical level. So truma doesn't have a shear. Truma doesn't have a shear. So even if you separate off one kernel of truma or one kernel of grain as truma, that exempts the rest of the pile of wheat. So the same way that one kernel, quote unquote, exempts the pile, so we'll say what? One kernel could aser. Right? It asers b'mashu. V'tayina mihachi v'ma amru teva oser b'choshu b'mino shlo b'mino b'no sein tam. We'll say again, we have rights that supports this. When do we say that tevel asers b'mashu? Ultimately, again, it's only b'mino, but shlo b'mino b'no sein tam. We'll say if it's a dissimilar mixture, it'll only be aser b'no sein tam. So we'll say, so we end off with this machlokes, ultimately again between Rav and Shmuel and Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan. At the end of the day, when do we say min b'mino aser? When do we say min? What are the shir from min b'mino b'shemino? So I'll say, how do we pass like this? So we pass like Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, that ultimately again, all isurin shebetorah, whether it's min b'mino, whether it's min b'she'eno mino, will only be aser b'no sein tam. We'll say in general, mixtures are only aser if there's enough isur to infuse taste. The exception to that rule will in fact be what? Yayin nesech and tevel. Also, when it comes to yayin nesech, because of the chumrah of avodah zara, ultimately again we will say min b'mino is aser b'mashu, but min b'she'ino mino ultimately again will be aser b'no sein tam. All right, we'll pick up over here.